What's up, Tudorinos? Welcome back to the Game Addicts podcast, a show where we talk about the modern retro video games that we play and collect. I am this podcast player one, Brando. Joining me here today is this podcast player two, Mike.
Hello.
Hello, good sir. Welcome back to the show. Now, here's the thing. To all of you listening to us now, we don't know when this episode's going to drop. This is an episode for what we call the proverbial bag. We have been doing a couple of these the past couple of weeks. And, of course, you guys have enjoyed a couple of back-to-back retrospectives when Mike went out for his surgery.
Yes.
And we aired those.
Is actually the first recorded podcast after surgery.
It's almost kind of like a warm-up. We're not live out to the public.
It really is.
You know, so this is almost kind of like a little bit of a test run to get back into things. I'm recovering from a cold, so if I sound weird or if I sniffle or cough, I do apologize ahead of time. I'm still recovering. I'm not quite there yet. I'm getting there, and I feel good enough to be able to do a show, unlike this past week when Mike's like, hey, are we going to do a show tomorrow? And I'm like, I shouldn't. I really shouldn't. Even though I woke up on Wednesday, that was the day I started to feel better. But I still didn't want to push
no reason to strain it.
No, dude, we had an episode in the bag. That was the PS3 retrospective. And today we are taking a trip back because the PSP was sort of the thing that got us started with the retrospectives, because we kind of did an episode that was what would become the retrospectives. And
right.
it was episode 13. And I don't know what episode number this is going to be. Again, we don't know when this is going to air. This is an episode for us to air when both of us can't make it. We got something going on. We have a holiday. We want to take a week off, whatever, right?
Yep.
So it may be in like a few weeks of our recording.
Hopefully no more surgeries.
Hopefully, yep, crossing fingers, right? But we don't know exactly. But as of right now today, a new episode with you has not aired yet. And so that'll be 118. And so looking back to episode 13 was called Game Addicts Portable. We were still in our infancy of doing this podcast. As far as hosting, I would like to say like getting grips on it as far as being comfortable enough with it. I felt confident enough that I could do it. But I feel like I've come a lot as far as like feeling like I gotta like push the show along or anything like that. That feeling is no longer there. It's more just like, hey, let's do it. And I feel like that since episode 13 at least, if we just want to focus on that number,
right,
you've gotten a lot more comfortable.
Yes.
And so we've done all these retrospectives. We've done NES, Super Nintendo, PlayStation 2 and 64, 360, Wii U. We did the Final Fantasy series and 7. We did that one. We actually dived deep on that single one. Super Mario, Zelda, Game Boy. We've done so many. And I felt that because we're thinking about what ones can we go back or do a retrospective on, and I'm like, we didn't necessarily do our format like what we like to do for the PSPs. We just kind of gushed on it, and we talked about like some of our favorite games, which is
right.
I mean, we're going to do that again, so it's going to be kind of like a retrospective redone or redo or redux, whatever you want to call it. However, we're also going to go through the different generations of the console, talk about sales numbers, talk about the history of the launch and everything, and focus completely on that. So in terms of the PSP, I remember when this got announced at E3.
I don't.
You don't? I believe it was 2004. And I want to say that it came out in 2005. I want to say that was it. That's just going off memory because now I'm going to go and actually look up the information of the actual release date on that.
I am right now, and I actually have it up. 2004. You are right.
2004.
Complete Sony press conference. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So because it says E3 2004, and it was released in Japan in December of 04, and it came out in the States, in North America, Canada, and Mexico, all that kind of stuff, in March of 05. So think about that. That was the year I graduated high school, was 2005. This thing came out.
Yeah.
And it was really a unique situation. So, like, because Nintendo has dominated the handheld market. You had Sega with the Game Gear. You had a couple different weird, like you had the Wonder Swan. That was never big over here. You had Neo Geo Pocket. It never really took off. You had Sega had their Sega Nomad. You could play Sega Genesis games on the go. You had the TurboGrafx one, but I mean TurboGrafx as a whole in the States, like as a brand, never really took off.
No.
And then here's Sony coming in, like we're gonna have a multimedia device in your pocket, and so they released the very first model of the PSP, which is it's the Model 1000, and I
have one of those somewhere around here.
Because you were because you were actually like working on it or modding it, right? Or
yeah, I've got one to mod, and I've got a bunch of them. I've got a bunch of Vitas. I got lots of projects, but yeah.
So the one
I like that model,
dude. The first model is the thickest. The main design for the PSP never really changed until you get to the other one we're gonna talk about later, but. You have
the flop.
Yes, we're going to talk about it. But you have the main model, and I remember the first time I ever held one. I was working at the window factory, and a coworker, this kid, he got one and brought it in, and it must have been like that summer. I'm probably going to say it was probably around August or something of that year, and like he brought it in, and I looked at it, and it's one of those things where like. I knew it was out. I knew all that kind of stuff, but I really wasn't really wanting to dive into it. I really had no interest in it at the time. And then I saw it, and I'm like, oh, crap, is that like a PSP? And then he goes, yeah. And then I held it, and I'm like, this is weird. But then like the quality of the screen and then like the graphics, I'm like, I was not expecting that. Of course, I'm a kid. I never even had a Game Boy Advance. I played my buddies, but like, so the Game Boy Color was like my last handheld. Yeah.
I had an SP.
My buddy, he had an SP.
I like the SP a lot.
And I remember playing like, he ended up getting Mario Brothers 3 for that. I remember playing that mostly on there. But I mean, so for me, it was like, okay, cool, it's Nintendo. I wasn't really that big into it. And then this comes out. Needless to say, like, some don't regard the PSP as a success, even though it sold like 82 million consoles, which is it's a truckload.
That's a lot.
Not as big as some of Nintendo's biggest, like the DS and the Game Boy, sure. Because the Game Boy is a little bit of a, as we discussed on that episode, it's encompassing the original model, the pocket model, the light model that was out in Japan, the backlight, and then the color models are also kind of in the same family, even though some of the color games, they won't work on the original model. It's almost just kind of like a half step. So it's like still like it's all like it's like how the PS4 and the PS4 Pro, it's all PS4. Even though that's
Nintendo though. I mean, look at the Game Boy Advance, Game Boy DS. I mean, they're all the same.
We'll see, but then you have the Game Boy Advance, like where those games you couldn't play on. That's like a significant like next generation. Whereas
right, but I'm saying when you go into the Game Boy Advance, you have the Game Boy Advance system, then you have the Game Boy Advance backlit, then you have the Game Boy Advance SP,
the
micro. So you have 4 different types of systems here to play these games. It's Nintendo does that. I mean, they did it with the DS. Look at the DS, DS Lite. I mean,
XL,
DSi. Yep. There's 4 right there. So that's
then,
Nintendo for you.
And 3DS did it again with 3DS, 3DS XL, 2DS,
New 2D, yeah.
2DS, new 3DS, new 3DS XL,
Yep.
and now the new 2DS XL.
Yeah.
And it's funny, but all those games, all those systems count towards the baseline 3DS sales.
Right.
And that's the way it is. And so there are other models of the 1000 that did come out. There was the 2000, which I actually have, my original. That's when I got it. I remember picking mine up, and I remember when and where.
I think that's what I had was the 2000.
Yep. Mine was the bundle. I don't have the box anymore, unfortunately, but mine also came with the Daxter pack-in game.
Yep, and did you come with the...
Mine came with the Family Guy Freaking Sweet collection.
Okay, so mine came with the Jack and Daxter, but it also came with National Treasury.
You always say it like that.
Let me see. I want to see if that's... I just deleted one of my tabs. Whoops.
You always say National Treasure like National... You always say it National Treasury, and it cracks me up.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep. But I remember getting this in November 2007. Dude, 2007 was the year. That was the year I moved out on my own, got my own apartment. I was living with my girlfriend, who became my wife, and Silent Rob. And that year we got a PS3, we got a Wii, and then at the end of the year, I'll never forget. I went and got the PSP. I went and picked it up, right? And then, see now, I'm messing with this old PSP, and now I can't get the back door to close. This thing went through some heck, man. It went through. It went through hell and back with me, and I dropped it for sure. But it was November. I remember going to get it, and I got a flat tire. not just a flat tire, a nail in my tire. And I actually had to buy a whole new tire. And thankfully, they had one of my tires, or the same kind of profile tire they had at that Walmart. So I went to Walmart to pick up the PSP, and I had to get a new tire. And I'm like, crap, how much is this going to cost? And they told me. And I still went and bought my damn PSP. Oh, man. I was so broke.
I'm wrong. Mine was Ratchet and Clank.
Oh, they had a Clank game, didn't they?
Yep.
That's right.
And which model was it? It looks like it was a 3000 then.
Oh, 3000. So you got yours a little bit later.
No, wait, that's National Treasury 2.
National Treasury 2?
Treasure 2, sorry.
And are you sure it's on this system, or is it on the PS2 or?
No, that's the bundle. I pulled up the bundle.
I'm giving you shit for back on the old PlayStation.
Yeah.
Dead to rights.
Yeah, you right.
So
apparently I had a 3000.
Oh, man. Anyway, so the 2000 came out, and then of course, like he said, the 3000, and that's actually my playable console now.
That is my playable console unmodded.
Yep, this is my black one, and yours is
the green.
Yeah, the Metal Gear Solid.
So mine is the US Metal Gear Solid bundle package, which is different because the other one is the camouflaged.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But as we dive into this.
So I have another picture that showcased all the models. But being me and being an idiot, I actually forgot to put that up.
It happens.
So I'm going to do that before we get going too much further, because there is another model that is a digital only model that we're going to be talking about. That is
so. I remember when this came out because I was overseas and one of the guys I was with was so excited for it. He pre-ordered it. He got it and he got rid of it almost immediately because it was not what he wanted.
You're talking about the digital only.
Yes.
Well, so the digital only version is definitely.
You can cover me up. It's all right.
No. I'm just gonna get all set up there because I have a picture of like all the systems from the top, right?
Right.
So here's the picture. We're in the back row. That is the 1000, right?
The thickie.
Yep, the thick one. And then you have like the 2, the 3, and then finally the PSP Go, which is the all digital model. And then when you have them facing forward, there's hardly any difference at all on it until you get to the Go, because it actually is like more of a kind of a slide, like those
right
where it's a more compact, and then you slide up to reveal the controls, which so that's a bit different. But the PSP Go, wow, I like how I talked about before we got on air about the whole symmetry thing.
Yeah, that's way off.
And it's way off now because I fixed it. Yeah, so move it right over there. Right on the fly. There we go.
Good enough.
Screw it. Get over there. So the PSP Go, as I said, it's a bit of a slider. It has the same size screen, but it's supposed to be more compact, and it's all digital. No physical media for this. You can only download stuff from the store, which region locks it, because then each system is tied to a single PlayStation Network account. So unlike the other ones where you could sort of like work around that and get games a different way, no. The only ways you can actually get them is from downloading them off the store per se, or also downloading them off the store on your PS3, transferring them over, or on the PC using the Media Go app that they had at the time. Now,
so we have a funny story about that.
We do, because this was my wedding gift from my wife, and I liked it, but I didn't like it.
Right.
I kind of like your friend. I thought I was going to like it more than what I really did. There were aspects about it that I liked. I kind of liked the more form factor of it, because when you're holding a PSP like this and you're like this with it, and then you have like, it feels really weird after a long time. Of course, you actually have a grip for yours to kind of give yourself more form factor, which you can get those. But
mine's the Monster Hunter one, so I totally have a Christmas setup.
Yeah, you do, with the green and the.
It's the only one I really liked, because it actually sits like a controller. Like it sits exactly like a controller. So they have a PS3 style where when you put it on there, it feels like a PSP controller. It has the PSP, the PlayStation 3 grips and everything on it. I didn't want that. I wanted something more unique, and I like this. It fits. It works for long place times.
Absolutely.
But anyways.
But I like the form factor of the Go. Even though my hands are a little bit bigger, it fits better. Everything's a little bit more like compact, because then the shoulder buttons are on the top. So, it felt good. I remember playing quite a few games on it. I remember getting Dissidia when that came out and played that on there. I got Chinatown Wars, Grand Theft Auto. I bought that on there. Again, though, like this was my first foray into all digital, and I wasn't a huge fan of it, even back before I was collecting. And I was able to download all my PS1 classics that I had already acquired, on there, and played some of those. I remember I played Resident Evil 2 on here. I played a whole playthrough of that on here. So it definitely works for that. But it flopped. It flopped.
It did. Horrible.
And it was like, This was their first foray into an all digital market. And I see what they were doing on both fronts. They were like, let's get our audience ready for all digital and let's try and curtail piracy. This is a good way to do that. And then we could sort of give it to them in a form factor that's more portable. Because when you look at this and how thin this was really like a really great idea. But there was also some games that came out on a physical format that just weren't available. And there were some really, really freaking big ones that were not.
Hold on. I got it right here in my stack.
Yeah. Crisis Core. FF7.
Probably one of the most important games on this system.
Sure. I mean, when I bought mine in that November 07, right?
Yeah.
And I bought mine because FF7 was coming out in March. And I could have waited. Until March. But I was living on my own. I had no discipline when it came to not giving in to my wants. I bought it on a Sunday evening, so I was actually bored, sitting at home thinking about the PSP. And then I checked my bank account and decided to go buy a PSP, and then got a flat tire with a nail and had to buy a new tire. So then my funds were pretty much depleted for the next while. And thankfully, made it out all right. Hey, Pupper Dog, how you doing?
Hey, puppies.
So, yes, I bought that actually for that game only, whereas for Crisis Core. But, of course, I picked up a couple games when I did. And I actually have my entire collection here that I'm going to go through when we get near towards the end of the podcast. But next up, I wanted to talk about the physical media, because we actually talked about the all-digital one and how it flopped. They actually tried to make the PSP Go, they launched it. Actually, they launched it in the very beginning of October 2009, and I got married in October of 2009. So it was brand spanking new when I got mine.
Right.
So, and then that summer, the 2010, they bundled it with 3 games, and I also read in Australia they bundled it with 10 games, trying to really hey guys, jump in on this, get this going. And
one of the biggest things about this system is its hackability. That's
Sure.
why they sold so many units.
And then, of course, the PSP Go, with its reliance on digital media and connectivity to the store at the time,
right,
hacking it was not really feasible, because then you would have to make sure it did update and all that kind of stuff. And if you get caught, you could get banned, all that kind of crap, right? All this stuff.
Nowadays, it's not a big deal.
No, absolutely not. I would love to have the PSP Go. Now, the funny story, we never actually completed that, so I do apologize, because I ended up spiderwebbing into the UMD, but I wanted to finish our story. So I got that for a wedding gift. And then I met you, and you said you kind of wanted to get into the PSP again. And I said, well, I have the Go, and I don't really, I play it, and then I put it aside for months at a time, and because of the all digital thing, and you're like, that doesn't really bother me. I want to play the Final Fantasy 7 and 9, and maybe I'll look and see if they have a couple PSP games on there that I really want to look at and get that, and then maybe one day I'll hack it. Right? You were thinking that, and then so I sold it to you for a combination of money and a collection of Gundam Wing DVDs. And
yeah.
That was the deal.
So the deal that I got that, and it essentially became my Final Fantasy system. That's all I played. It was 7 and 9. 8 I'm not super fond of, but I did try it. I got basically to a certain point, and I was like, nope, I can't do this. I don't like the magic. But anyways, and I always closed it and let it go into its standby. It died one day, and I lost 40 hours or something ridiculous. Because basically, what happened is that we worked nights, and I would drive to work, and I would leave really early because I had about a 20 minute drive, and I wanted to make sure I had a little bit of time. So I'd have 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes before me and you walked in. So I sat and played it, and I let somebody else borrow it. They never returned it. So I threw a fit and forced them to give me money. Well, funny thing is the money they gave me was enough to get a PSP 3000, the Metal Gear Solid one, which you went in and found it for me because I went home to get the money. I can't remember.
You were dropping somebody off from work. You gave somebody a ride.
Yeah, that's right. And I came back, and there it was. And you were like, it's the Metal Gear Solid one. I put it aside for you. And we talked about maybe doing a trade because it's Metal Gear Solid. Like, this is your deal. But we never did.
And you know what? That's okay. It's awesome. It as much as I would like that more, like, just because I love Metal Gear, you know,
right?
That's the color that you wanted, so you should be able to have that. Now,
I didn't want. Honestly, I wanted the red, but I was not paying the price because it was significantly more for the God of War edition, which is the red one.
Well,
and I didn't.
If I ever come across a God of War edition
for a decent price,
I will buy it, and and then we'll swap.
But here's the thing. It didn't come with, because these came with the Metal Gear Solid. So I actually had to go out and buy one, which I haven't removed the sticker off this. So you can yell at me later. I had to go buy Peace Walker because you can't own the Metal Gear Solid limited edition PSP without owning the damn game.
Yeah, and and you know what? That day that we went and got you hooked up for the PSP, there's more to that story, which we will continue at the end of the show.
Yes.
But in the meantime, let's talk about the UMDs. So the UMDs were the physical media. They are discs, like a CD or like a mini disc, and they are like in a cartridge. They are in like this little protective shell. I'll just use this one on my screen up here. And they're in there. There's the whole design and everything on it. And then on the back, like you can see in the picture, there's that one little square in the plastic where the laser reads the information while it spins. So this little casing will keep it in there. It'll actually keep it in like the back of it, right? The whole deal. And it will keep it in place. So that way, jostling or moving around, it'll actually keep the disc spinning and not skipping around and not getting scratched up or anything.
I believe, now don't quote me on this, but I believe that center portion has a magnet on it to keep it. It may not, actually, now that I pull it open.
I don't think it does.
It doesn't.
But one thing that is kind of cool is that these little plastic cases can break. You know, you can actually break them. They can actually come apart, and you can get replacement ones for them. One of my games that I have in my collection is actually in a replacement case, which is a third-party, all clear case. But then, they'll have a little designation, like you can see on the picture on the screen. There's a little controller on there, and then for Family Guy, that has a little video
movie.
A little movie symbol. So that way, if you're just kind of looking at them real quick, you can kind of see which is which. Now, they did release a bunch of movies for the system.
185.
185 actual individual movies.
And we'll run through those later.
Sure, yeah.
A few. We're not going through 185. But a few of the big names. But to touch on the UMD, to me, this is one of the best ideas that's ever been put out.
Sure.
Because everybody that had DVD, let's just go, DVDs were the thing at the time. Essentially, this is a mini DVD disc. And a lot of people, as you know, you scratch them up. A lot of people take them out of the case. They get rid of these cases. I know a lot of people with the PlayStation did. They put them in their slip sleeves, stuff like that. I actually love this design because it protects the CD. And I thought that, and I honestly thought this. I thought that we would see a larger version of this later on. I thought that this would go over so well that they would actually make the Blu-rays and stuff in this cartridge for protectivity. Ugh. And I mean, it significantly improves the lifespan because you cannot wiggle this down and scratch it. You have to physically put your finger in there and scratch it up. So you actually have to you have to actually make the effort to hurt the disc. Now, dust and stuff like that, everybody knows that's normal. But these, I really thought that they were going to do something with them because they were just, my eyes, it's one of the best designs they've ever came up with because you've got a cartridge. I mean, this flops in there, slips in there, close it. If I opened it right, there we go. Opens, closes, and you're playing your game.
Well, see, and at the time,
I like that.
At the time, yeah, it was pretty innovative. But then as technology has gone forward and the simplicity, and it's gotten cheaper to use like USB type media discs. And for transfer, that is actually a lot better because since that transfer is a lot faster because, back then, putting a chip in your, in your console can only hold so much. Like I want to say I have a memory stick somewhere for the PSP that has like a 1 gigabyte.
I've got the huge one. I've got the Duo with the SD.
But that came much later. At the time, a gigabyte was the biggest that you could get or close to. So these games are much bigger than that, and they need to be stored on a higher. And at the time, the discs were a cheaper format for that. Nowadays, it's different because then we see the Nintendo Switch, which has that their little chip cards are 32 gigabytes, 64 gigabytes. And it is way cheaper than putting them on a disc. And also the discs have space limitations.
Right. But I always thought that moving forward with DVDs, just think of your PS4. It's a Blu-ray, right? So your games are all Blu-ray. But think about the longevity of that system if it was this type of flip system where you would literally have your disc, you would slide it in, snap it down, and you would play it. Your discs are protected. It's quicker, less moving components. I really thought that this was going to take off, but apparently it did not. Obviously, here we are.
But also for the movies, for Blu-rays, they do have a much better layer coating, to help protect them now than what they had even back then. So that has actually improved quite a bit.
I still to this day I wish they would have went to those because I like that. I don't know why. It's just something I like the protectivity of it because if I take it out and I drop this, I won't damage the disc.
Yeah.
So, and that happens a lot. Everybody knows it. You pull out that disc, you're trying to hold it by the center piece. You get your finger in there and you're trying to scoop it out. I drop them all the time.
So one thing that I want to touch upon about the PSP is this was the system that introduced the cross media bar, which would be like sort of like the operating system or like the OS going forward, because then the PS3 would have the cross media bar. The PS4 has a version of the cross media bar. Yeah, it
updated. I like the PS4 one better than the 3.
As do I. But for its basic needs, they were marketing this, they were calling this the Walkman of the 21st century.
I tell you what, it was awesome. You could. I mean, one of the biggest things here is like you said, back then you had the 1 gig. You could download music on this and listen to it like a portable media 3D or a MP3 player. And I believe, I may be wrong, you might want to look this up if you're on your phone, that you could play music while playing games.
I don't think you could.
I don't even know if this has power.
I don't think that you could do that. You could play music or you could play videos, but it all had to be separate. Now, Sony, one of the downsides that Sony's had for every single one of their their freaking handhelds.
Proprietary media, freaking storage.
Yep. So like the memory cards. Now for PSP, now you can get converters, like this one is. So I have a micro SD.
Ooh, since you're doing that, I'll pull out my Micro Duo.
Yeah, I have a micro SD and I have 16 gigabytes. So the system will it recognizes all that system memory, but then like it is a Sony developed memory stick, and you had the Memory Pro Duo, which is what the first couple models, the 1, 2, 3000s, accepted.
I have that right here. Hold on.
And then you had for the PSP Go, it was M2. And then for the Vita, it was something different too.
I have the Vita one as well right here. So here is, I'm going to try to put this up there so that it is quite visible.
Yep.
That is the Pro Stick Duo, but it is the micro SD adapter. So you can actually put a micro SD card in it, and it will hold it. It'll run it just like the Pro Stick Duo. Now, these things were expensive at the time, but not nearly. I got to put this back in this little baggie here, guys. Sorry. As expensive as this. So this is a used one from Disc Replay. This is 16 gigs. I paid $20 for this, for 16 gigs. Whew, this thing is small.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to make this work. Wait, down.
Bring it down and hold it there. There it is. It's starting to go. It's all blurry. There. It almost was. Yeah, that is for the PS Vita.
I'm trying to get it centered.
Stop moving. There it is. There you go. PS Vita. That is a tiny ass little stick.
I mean, comparatively to the Duo, it is. Here, I'm just going to keep the Duo, and it's plastic.
Yeah.
I mean, it is literally nothing.
That's about the size of the micro SD card you put into the adapter, you know?
Yeah. But
it's nuts.
That for 16 gigs at the time the Vita came out, that's a lot for $20 used. I believe the original price was like $40.
And then to get a 32 a 32 is like damn near
$100.
$100, yeah.
And then what was the biggest? The 64 was $130. That's insane.
Yeah, that has always hurt Sony, and I really wish, like, even when so Nintendo came out with the Switch, right? And it doesn't come with very much memory, but you can do it using a micro SD to expand that up to like a terabyte.
Right.
And they don't
even when they have the terabytes.
Right, when they have them. But it is compatible towards up that high because they're like, yeah, people are going to want to expand their memory. We can only, we're trying to make this affordable. So
I have a 200 in mine.
I think mine's a 250 or something like that. And then as I remember right, like the year after I bought mine, the 400s were just a little bit more than what I paid for my 250. So I was like, oh, I could have had a 400. But
I think maybe, I don't know which one I have now. Now that you say that, I'm pulling up a box. So I have everything kind of close to here so I can actually do stuff with it.
So the PSP button layout, I'm actually going to take, I'm going to bring up the old picture again that I had up here.
Okay.
For it. But you had your 4 directional buttons, like your PlayStation controller. You had your 4 face buttons, your cross, circle, triangle, and square. And then at the bottom, you had below the directional, you had a thumbstick, which is not an analog stick because this thing is like a slider. Pretty similar to what the 3DS would have. This would have this, and of course, that fabled Boomerang PS3 controller.
Yeah,
had a slide stick like this is the most uncomfortable stick you'll ever play with in your life. I guarantee it. At the bottom, you have like a home button to bring you back out of your game volume. You have a display button, a kind of a music setting button, your start and select. You have your power tab on the side, and up top you have your 2 shoulder buttons, left and right, and then your Wi-Fi as well as USB connection. And on the bottom, and I believe this kind of started with the 2000, but right next to your audio jack, you have a audio video out So
Yep.
you can get component cables, which can plug into that, and you can plug this thing into your TV. And it's awesome.
I mean, really, one of the biggest things with this system is that it was PS1 quality in your hands.
Oh, dude, it was like...
And PS1 is one of the, in my opinion, you really changed the game for game systems because of what it was. And having that here is important.
You know, I would even argue to say it was more than PS1 quality. It was damn near PS2 quality.
Almost, yeah.
Like a lot of these games that they were able to get stuff out of, like you like we're going to talk about when we go through the collections, that like this is like you said PS1, and I almost think that you're selling it short because
yeah, I think because I actually have a game here that I think is one of the better looking games, and we're going to God of War.
Sure, absolutely.
Chains of Olympus. I mean, that game looked better than PS1.
Sure.
I believe it's right in between PS1 and PS2.
Well, and then
quality.
and it also it really depends on the game and then who worked on it. And of course, if you blew it up on a screen, you'd definitely be able to tell like a noticeable difference between PS2 and but it's on the screen, it's in your hand, so it's going to be downsized. And of course, God of War came out on the PS2 itself. So those two games on the PS2, and then you had the two God of War games on the PSP, and they play fantastic. They play just like the other games, and they look fantastic.
Right, you can't tell a difference when playing them, in my opinion.
But I really like how you can do the component cables. I actually have that, and then maybe one day when I have the capability to hook it up and stream it that way, I will. But also, the PSP now has a pretty capable emulator for for the PC. It's called PSP. It's like PP, PSP, something like that. Something along those lines. You'll be able to find it. PSP emulator. And it works pretty good. I've actually used it.
Emulator to put on there, or the emulator on your PC?
Emulator on the PC. I'm not talking about all the emulators that you can put onto it, because of course you can put if you hack it, you can put emulators onto the PSP for NES, SNES, and all. Put some of your favorite ones on there that do work. I was talking about the PSP emulator itself on the PC.
Yeah,
I have used it. I have used it on the laptop just to test out stuff, and it works pretty good. Especially if you've got a good capable laptop or PC. It doesn't take a high end at all, because I was able to get it running on my old laptop, and you remember the dinosaur that thing is. So now that we've gone through that, like, I want to talk about some of the other features that you could do on this thing. This was the very first device that I ever saw a tab to download podcasts.
Oh, you're right.
You could subscribe to RSS feeds.
That's right, you could.
And I was like, what is that? What is this going? Like, I mean, this is like 12 years ago. And it was like it was the emergence of what is podcasting. And
it really it wasn't even a big thing then. Like, it wasn't like what it is now at all, obviously. No. But it was just, I don't think it was a feature that very many people used.
Well, because you could use the RSS feed also for blogs and other things. So you can do that. You could also get onto like internet radio stations with it. You could also hook it up with a headset for Skype.
It's crazy what this thing was capable of in the time.
I know. It was ahead of its time. And
didn't it have a camera? I believe it did. I want to.
You could attach it on the very top with USB. You could put a little camera attachment. Yes, you could, but it was a separate thing. Yes. Now, another thing that I want to talk about is the fact.
Here it is.
Is the fact that it had a web browser.
It's $6 now.
For the camera, but web browsing. Think about this. This is before we had cell phones in our pockets, dude.
Yeah.
This is way before that. Like, we had very limited capability, and here is a system. You can get on Wi-Fi with it and go Starbucks, wherever you're going to get. I don't know who all had free Wi-Fi back then in 2006, but you could get, you could look at web browser, and it was pretty basic. You couldn't do a lot on there, but then, of course, one of the biggest things that I use this for, I use this for myself, remote play. You could hook this up to your PS3. We had our PS3 in the living room, and I would lay in bed in my bedroom. I remember playing through FF7 via remote play.
Right.
And this is before this was like in 2008, sometime around there. And I remember laying in bed, and this was my physical copy of FF7 was in the PS3 out there. This is before the digital one came out. And I remember playing it through there. And of course, there was also, they came out with the digital comics reader. Where you could download digital comics from, some of your favorites and whatnot off of the store, and they would be published new ones every single week, and you could it would have them up on your screen, and you can switch the pages and zoom in and do all that stuff on there, and that was shut down eventually, sure, but yeah.
Okay, I actually am sending you the image. Because I actually got an image. There it is. Open. I sent it to you via...
Oh, the PSP camera. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know if you could transition that over, but it looks so small because when you look at the PSP top, it actually... I will unhook mine and show you, everybody that is visually watching here, the spots where this actually
because it screws
in.
Yeah.
Because it screws in at these points here. Well, if I can move my finger the correct way.
Yep, right there.
Right there. And it would just screw in right there. So it's literally just probably come out to about right there, and it's just like a little mini camera that you're like a web camera. Essentially, it looked just like one, and it just plugged right in, and you could Skype right on it. That's one of the first things that you could do that on, like that.
Mm-hmm. It was definitely trend setting because this came out before iPhones, before smartphones, before all this kind of stuff that we have now that we just kind of take for granted. I mean,
here's the problem: Sony is an innovator. Plain and simple. The problem is that they make it and it's expensive. They try to really ride that train, and then somebody else comes along and makes it better for cheaper.
Well, do you remember a few years ago that they made like a new MP3 Walkman that is like compatible with nearly every audio file you can imagine? And it's like, wow, that's cool. And it's like $800. No.
Yeah, it was what it was is that you could literally put any MP3 on there and it would tell you the name. It didn't have to. It would recognize the song as a song. It was like how you have on your phones where you can hold it up and say, Siri, what song is this? And it'll tell you. It essentially had that kind of technology, but they wanted so much money for it.
Mm-hmm.
It had I think they said it has like every single song ever made at the time information so that it would tell you everything like you would look it up online. Who needs that? I don't need that. Do you need that? I know what it is. I downloaded it.
Yeah. And it really
$800.
Right. And now think about it, like they're charging that much for it, and where has music media gone? It's gone streaming.
Yep.
Nobody downloads stuff anymore. Why would you when you could just pay a monthly fee and get access to Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music? It doesn't really make sense anymore.
Yeah, we use Spotify, but one of the big things is, for me, if it's a band that I enjoy, I buy the CD just to support them because they make more money off the CD sales. Well, now, for your case, and a lot of people now, vinyl is the best way to get your music. It is going to be the absolute highest quality you're ever going to get. Show it. Yeah.
I'm recording this like the week after I got that. So it's, I definitely, if there's a handful of bands, my favorite bands, that I'm going to get their entire discography on vinyl because that's, and I want to pay them. unfortunately, for some of the bands, I've had to actually go and pay a reseller to do that, and I don't like to do that because then it doesn't go back to the band. But I want to talk about the movies. We mentioned
the movies.
We did mention that they did, release UMD movies, and there's a crap load of them, including Dragon Ball Z Bio Broly.
Yeah,
I had no idea that one was ever released. I have seen a lot of these. Of course, you see them. Of course, they have Evil Dead 2, which you're on the hunt for.
Just for my wife, because she has like everything. But another one is the Spider-Man animated series.
That's awesome. We mentioned before Family Guy Freaking Sweet Collection, Family Guy Stewie Griffin, The Untold Story. That was actually before they got picked back up as a series again. That was the first thing that they came back to do, and they were just going to do like direct to DVD movie specials, and, and do all that stuff because of the popularity of the show. That came out, but then they also came out with Volume 1 and 2, which is seasons 1 and 2 is a Volume 1, and season 3 is Volume 2. So you have all of those. You also have Escape from New York. You have Enter the Dragon, Entourage, the first season, Fast and the Furious, A Few Good Men, Final Fantasy VII, Advent Children, and Spirits Within.
Yeah. I mean, you have Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
You have, where is it at? I mean, A House of a Thousand Corpses, House of the Dead. Halloween is on here.
Ghostbusters,
Friday Night Lights.
Godsmack Live. That's so weird.
Yeah.
They
Toy Story.
Yeah.
Toy Story.
They have Toy Story on here?
Yes, Toy Story and Toy Story 10th Anniversary Edition. So there's two different ones.
They have the Goonies.
And they also have Beavis and Butthead 1.
The
Michael
Grudge
Judge collection.
The Grudge. Can you imagine playing and then that little girl coming out of your PSP?
That'd be creepy. Terminator 3.
Wow, T3?
Batman Begins.
Yeah, I've actually seen that one out and about. The Hangover 1 and 2, Happy Gilmore, Harry Potter.
There's so many. I mean, you think about 185. This is U.S. titles, by the way, guys. This is not Japan. If we add them all together, they're huge. They're huge. I looked at them. I didn't want to look at them.
How cool would it be? They have 4 Harry Potter movies. They have the first 4.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a neat little collection to get, And some of these are really dirt cheap, and other ones are actually pretty expensive. I remember seeing Sin City,
way up there, $16.
And so it's like, I don't
like
really
Jumanji,
right?
The original Jumanji. Come on,
The Incredibles. Wow,
Office Space. God, some of these and they have a lot of good ones on here. Star Trek Nemesis Warriors. I mean, it's just Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Amityville Horror. There's just so much.
Oh, this is it. This is the best one they have on here. Larry the Cable Guy, Get Her Done.
Get Her Done. Did you also see that they have almost all of the Riddicks on here? Pitch Black is on here. I think the Chronicles of Riddick.
Men in Black, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I'm just kind of going through this list that we pulled up
Napoleon Dynamite. Air Force One. Wow, I didn't know that was on there. But anyways, I mean, there's just so this PSP did so well, but the problem is that literally from the get-go, within weeks, people were hacking them and putting all other media on them, like NES, Super NES, Genesis. And that really actually drove the sales of the PSP so high because it was the first time that an individual could have something of this caliber on the go. And that's a big deal because, as you know, those games are very small. They don't take much, but the screen was so good quality. Everything was so good on these that it was perfect for it. And that's what really drove the sales. So they made all these movies for it, thinking, it's done so well. a lot of these didn't sell very well.
Well, and again, because that the number of systems that were moving, as you said, a lot of people wanted to hack them and they bought them for hacking. Because of the number of systems out there, and this goes for the games and the movies, when you're able to see, hey, we have 40 million PSP sold, people will be like, wow, all right. That means there's going to be a percentage of people that have that might buy our stuff. So you have game developers, you have movie studios that will put their IPs out on that just as a way to have another medium for that. And I mean, and it's evident because the library of PSP games is drastically higher than there are for Vita games. Even though the Vita is an awesome system, it didn't sell anywhere near.
No,
PSP
not even close.
Nowhere near close.
Not even close.
But then we also have so many great, awesome games for the PSP. And I guess that's where we can kind of go into right now, where we can actually start showcasing our collection. And I have a much larger one than you do.
Yes. I would like to first step through the 1 through 11 top-selling games.
The top-selling games, yes,
Let's go through the top-selling games. Now, this is a PlayStation, so a lot of these games you're going to see is because they're PlayStation exclusive games. But the first one with 8 million sales even, at least that's what it says, even, is Rockstar Games Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories. I do not own that one. Nope, I don't. I don't know if you do, but 8 million copies sold.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome for a handheld system.
And also, both Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories were then ported to the PS2 with enhancements, especially Vice City Stories. Vice City Stories came to the PS2. That was because those are the versions of the games that I played because I was like, oh, I that game's awesome. I the GTAs at the time. Think about it. You had one Vice City, or not one. I'm sorry, 3 Vice City and San Andreas. Like, dude,
San Andreas was huge.
I mean, well, all of them were, dude. Every single one of them. They all got bigger.
Vice City and San Andreas, I think, was the big turning point in the Grand Theft Autos. And it just, I love San Andreas. I did the same thing over and over again. But that's, for me, that's what a Grand Theft Auto game is.
But then you get Liberty City Stories, and now you have the game on the go. Mm-hmm. And it's stripped back, but you have the cutscenes. You have the story, and it's not as detailed as the other ones, but it's there, and the gameplay is the same. And then they added in to Liberty. It's the same map from Liberty City from 3 with a few changes because it's set a little bit before it. And then I remember they couldn't do, for whatever reason, they didn't do motorcycles in GTA 3. And I don't know if it was an oversight or if they had trouble with it, whatever it was, right? So instead of just like people, they actually made a little thing in GTA 3 where motorcycles were banned from the city. They never went out of their way to say it, but if you found it, legislation, motorcycles banned in the city. And then in Liberty City Stories, they had motorcycles, and some stuff that happens there leads to them banning motorcycles.
Which is really neat. But then number 2 on sales. Surprise. Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories at 5.03 million.
So this was one of the 2 games I picked up that day. Actually, 3 games. I bought 3 games that day. And I had already played it. I already had it on the PS2. The PS2 version of Vice City Stories looked better than the original Vice City.
Yeah.
It looked phenomenal. And they basically, when you played that version on the PS2, you did not feel like, for Liberty City Stories, you kind of felt like, okay, this was on the PSP. I can see where they cut some corners, and they put it on the PS2. They made some enhancements. And with the Liberty City Stories, you had the PSP version, and then they took that version and like reworked it for the PS2. And like, wow, like it was awesome. But then, of course, now that I have the PSP, I've got to see what this looks like on the go.
Yeah.
I got to see it. I got to play it. And I definitely did. And so did 5 million other people. It is no surprise in that era
Yeah,
like,
that was one of the biggest titles.
like in that era at all.
But here's a surprise to me. Okay, now I would assume that a lot of these sales for number 3 is Japan.
It is exclusive to Japan. I just looked it up.
Oh, the portable 3
Yep.
third. Okay, so all Japan it would be Monster Hunter portable third.
Yep.
And later on down the list, they pretty much every one of the Monster Hunters is on there.
Yeah, because I mean, then you have Gran Turismo, which is again Gran Turismo.
Gran Turismo, which
portable.
I have that. And by the way, I personally don't like it because it is not your standard Gran Turismo. It is basically you just race and you buy your cars and that's it.
But then think about what they were doing with it. I mean,
Right.
What that came out in 09. So okay, I mean,
Yeah, and look what's on the thing. Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yep.
Advertisement on the back.
But I mean, it's portable. And then of course you have Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, God of War Chains of Olympus, you know, and then Crisis Core FF7.
Yep.
And Monster Hunter Freedom 2, Daxter, which is the game that I showed. That was like an offshoot, a side title from Jak and Daxter. Midnight Club 3, that's another Rockstar game on here.
Yeah.
And then, of
And
course,
then another
Monster Hunter Freedom was number 11.
So if you really look at this list, I only see 4 publishers. Rockstar, Capcom, Sony, Square. That's it.
But there's a lot, though. There's a ton. This game system is a RPG machine. But there's also tons of racers. You also have like Burnout, Need for Speeds.
You have slow down.
Well, I'm just saying. You have sports games galore on here too.
So, since you said that, this is Need for Speed Pro Street.
Yeah.
Burnout. Legends. Sorry. I'm sorry. And then Juiced 2.
So just think about that. Those are console games that they were able to somehow make in some form on the PSP.
And almost every one of the ones I have left are almost RPGs.
Yeah. So do you want to go ahead and just go through yours and then I'll go through mine?
Yeah, I'll blow through mine really quick because a lot of these. So I've already showed Peace Walker, obviously.
MGS, yeah.
And then the Untold Legends, Brotherhood of the Blade. That's an RPG machine, top down. As a lot of these are. Now, this is interesting. I'm a Tales fan. So I have Tales of the World, Radiant Mythology. That's a big one. I showed Gran Turismo. Since we're going through RPGs, I have all these spread out. Star Ocean, First Departure. Obviously,
Crisis
you
Core.
you cannot own a PSP without this game, in my opinion. One of the main reasons why I bought it. I've got almost all of the Monster Hunters listed, so I'm just going to set those aside. And then Phantasy Star Portable, if it'll show. It's not one of the good. I don't have the original case. Final Fantasy Tactics. The War of the Lions.
That's a remake of the PS1.
Yep.
Classic.
And now we found this together. The Final Fantasy 20th Anniversary Final Fantasy. The original Final Fantasy on PSP. That's the only reason why I bought it. It's the original right here. Not much story in that one.
No.
But then you have Chains of Olympus. I bought it's Dungeons and Dragons Tactics. It's top down style. And then this one, when I bought this, I remember we both pronounced this wrong. I still don't think Dragoneer's Area?
Dragoneer's Aria.
Aria, yeah. This is actually pretty fun. It is a lot like Final Fantasy style gameplay. It's more like Final Fantasy meets Secret of Mana. So yeah, Secret of Mana, you have this perspective where you're looking at the enemy, and it has all your bars down here, and then you're looking at the enemy, but you see your characters lined up. Same style. And then Dissidia, the first one. That's pretty much. Oh wait, and those are a lot of RPGs. If you see, what do you think? About 80% of mine are RPG games. And then, because I'm an Armored Core fan, I have Armored Core Formula Front Extreme Battles, still with the sticker on it, because I'm lazy. Was lazy. So yeah, I mean, as you stated. Oh, and I have Toy Story 3.
The game, not the movie.
Yeah, the game, because it didn't have it, but I got it in a bundle.
Right.
So yeah.
So my collection's a tad
Much
larger.
larger.
Yeah, a tad. I went hog wild in collecting for the PSP. It's got to the point where anything else that I want to find, I have to leave our area to go find it, because everything else around our area, I'm pretty much like, okay, I'm good. But starting off, mine is the third birthday.
See, I have been wanting to pick that up, and I've just been waiting.
And this is the third entry in the Parasite Eve games. Yes. It doesn't play like Parasite Eve 1 or 2. This is more of an action title. So this third birthday is very divisive. A lot of people don't like it. Some people do. I tried it. I liked it. And me, I end up looking past a lot of times what other people get too caught up on. It's like everybody's caught up on how this is different. Well, it's like, well, how is this different good?
Right.
How's it good for it? Up next, Assassin's Creed Bloodlines. This follows Altair, and I have not even played this once. I bought it so I could kind of have it within the collection. I think there's also an Ezio game on the DS. But
I'll look that up as you go through your list.
Up next, I have the Capcom Classics Collection Reloaded. This has 19 games from old school Capcom, as my UMD goes flying out of the case, because the case seems to be somewhat broken. But what old titles are on here? I may have gone through this once before, but I will go through it again, because why not?
There is. It is called Assassin's Creed 2 Discovery.
So the games on the Capcom's Classic Collection Reloaded are 1942, 1943, 1943 Kai, Commando, Echo Fighters, X's, if that's how you say it. Ghosts and Goblins.
I got one more. There's actually two games for it. Altair's Chronicles is on the DS as well.
Okay. Ghosts and Goblins.
Yeah.
Ghouls and Ghosts. Super Ghouls and Ghosts.
Man, you got it all.
Gunsmoke. The King of Dragons. Knights of the Round. Mercs. Pirate Ship. Higamaru. Oh, Sun. SON. Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition. Street Fighter 2 Hyper Fighting.
And they have so many versions of Street Fighter 2.
And then Volgus. And so, yeah, all that is on this collection. So it's, yeah, I love the Ghouls and Ghosts. I love the Street Fighter. And then there are a couple other cool little titles in there, like Knights of the Round. They're pretty cool to have. This next one is an awesome pickup if you're looking at PSP. Castlevania, the Dracula X Chronicles. So this game is a remake of a game called Castlevania Rondo of Blood, which was only available on the TurboGrafx 16. And then like a version of that was Castlevania Dracula X on like Super Nintendo. But this is a remake of the original Rondo of Blood. So like you have the original translation, you have the original Rondo, and then once you beat Rondo of Blood, you get a second game. Symphony of the Night.
It's pretty cool to have it on the go.
Exactly. Up next, like we've said before, Crisis Core, Final Fantasy 7. Can't say much more about it. This is the story that leads up to FF7.
And let me tell you what, that is a phenomenal story, and it introduces Genesis.
Absolutely.
And really tells the Sephiroth story.
Dissidia. Of course, I have my cover reversed from yours.
Yes.
I have, because this is a reversible cover. You have all the good guys or all the bad guys.
Yep, and I have the white one.
And then Dissidia Duodecim, which this game actually has the entire first game in it. Really cool to pick up. And
right.
But of course, then Duodecim's story actually focuses more on a few other characters. It brings in some new characters like Lightning, like Kain, Tifa, and Laguna, and uses them more in the story. If you ever want to be confused as crap about this, just try to play them. I have had
they're rough.
No, it's not bad.
I didn't like the story at all.
I don't think it's bad. It's just they pull these characters out of their time to fight in like an alternate dimension.
Yeah.
And in a fight that has been going on forever and ever. So, like you had, Final Fantasy 20th Anniversary Edition. I have that as well. That is the original Final Fantasy.
And they upscale the graphics and everything.
Yeah.
It looks really good.
Yeah.
They put movies in there, if I'm correct.
Yeah, they have. And the PSP has a bonus dungeon. And then
yes.
I also have Final Fantasy 2 20th Anniversary.
That's another one I'm looking for.
Which this is the original Final Fantasy 2, which was not released over here until the PlayStation 1 version.
Right.
So, really cool to have that. Final Fantasy 4, the complete edition. So, this is Final Fantasy 4, like what we had on the old Super Nintendo as Final Fantasy 2. And then, of course, you had the PS1 version, and then the PSP, or this PSP version, but the Game Boy Advance version. Well, what makes this so special? This comes with the formerly exclusive to the Wii store, Final Fantasy 4, the After Years, which is a little sequel set after Final Fantasy 4.
Didn't they make a DS?
They did have a DS remake.
I think that I have the DS version of 4.
Yes, that is the remake.
I do.
That's the one that's tough as nails.
Yes, that thing is freaking stupid hard.
Yeah. DS remake of 4 is a complete from the Upground remake, because they did the remake of 3, right? And then they did 4 in the same style. The graphics of this one are more faithful to the older versions. And then, of course, the After Years had the same graphics.
Yeah, 4 was very difficult on there. I believe I got to like the first big boss, and I was like, okay, like I know what I'm doing, and this is hard. Like I have destroyed pretty much almost every Final Fantasy game I've ever played, and I'm sitting here and I'm struggling to beat this boss because they scale.
Oh, dude.
And so I powered my guys up, and I'm going through there, and I'm just plowing through all the normal enemies, and he steps up, and it's that stupid water demon thing, and it just annihilates my group. I'm like, I can't beat this thing. I'm done.
Final Fantasy Tactics, War of the Lion.
Yeah.
And again, just look at the last. I have every single Final Fantasy game that's on here, as far as I'm aware. But that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and yeah. So, and then I have more RPGs to go too. But just like you also showcased, the God of Wars, I have Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta.
Now, when I originally had my first set of PSP, I had both. But Chains of Olympus is the one that I like the most. But the Ghost of Sparta is really not that much different. It is basically just another story.
I mean, and it's really cool that they're able to tell that story, just in a different medium. That they can go over here, tell this other story that's a part of everything. And here's a game that I mentioned I bought on the PSP Go, so I had to buy a physical version of it. Originally, this game came out on the DS. That's Chinatown Wars, Grand Theft Auto. Now, this is set in the newer HD verse. So you have like that started with GTA 4 and then 5. So this has the entire GTA 4 map on it almost. But the gameplay style is completely different. It's more of a top-down or an isometric. You won't be able to see it very well. And your dude's kind of small. It plays almost like the old school Grand Theft Autos, right? Now, and then all the graphics are kind of like cel-shaded, and you play an all-new story. You have like, again, radio stations, everything that comes with a Grand Theft Auto. But this also has an entire drug economy where you are a drug dealer and you go and you buy drugs, you buy, and then you buy low and you sell high. This game taught me more about economics than school ever did. In fact, I got to a point in the game where I was just doing that and I made so much money. Just like we said, the Liberty City stories, Vice City stories. I got those. Really cool games to have on the go. I mean, they're just, they're definitely kind of like, as games, they kind of feel outdated now because of how far that series has progressed in itself,
Right.
But like I said, when you're thinking about when those games came out, what that franchise was.
Yeah.
And it was on fire. So
that was the boom. That was the boom.
Yeah. And then people were just hungry for more.
But they were delivering with these, because I haven't yet to hear anyone say that these are terrible games, that they're fun side stories to keep it going until you get another main entry, San Andreas. And I know San Andreas was just unbelievably hot.
Well, okay, so you had San Andreas, and these games came out after.
Yeah.
And of course you had the original map from Liberty, the original map from Vice, and you got to revisit these places with new characters, with a new story, with new gameplay like Vice City was the first game that you could swim.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
It was limited, but you could do it. And then of course they added a whole bunch of stuff in, and it was just like they were developing new ideas. And then of course 4 was a complete departure from that graphic style, gameplay style entirely. So
right.
The next game I don't have the original case for this, unfortunately. Half Minute Hero is a kind of an RPG type game, and you have 30 seconds to save the world. Every time you get in a fight, you get more time, and as you're moving across the main map, you lose time. And if you die, if you run out of time or you die, it's over. You got to start over.
You start all over again.
But it's different. It's kind of got that old school pixely look to it. Really fun. This is a game that came out. It's exclusive. This was made by Level 5. Of course, they've made a bunch of other games, RPGs. I want to say Level 5 did Ni no Kuni. Crossing my fingers on that.
Let me look.
But,
where are you going?
This is a tactics game called Jeanne d'Arc. And it's set over there, 15th century France, as France and England battle in the 100 Years' War. A really cool game to pick up. This is exclusive to Sony.
Yes, you are correct. The
Man.
Level 5.
I still got it.
You still got it.
Killzone Liberation. So this is a game in the Killzone franchise.
Wasn't that one of the first ones out for that?
No, because you had Killzone, and then Killzone 2 came out on the PS3.
No. On the PSP.
This was the first one, yeah.
The first one, and I mean first, during the 1000 series, that was one of the first titles out.
Well, this
right?
came out in 06.
So 2 years, yeah. Well, a year for us.
Yeah. But this game is a top-down isometric. It's not a first person. And you have to work through these levels, and you do have to shoot and fight and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of neat. It's different. Obviously, you couldn't really do a first-person shooter to the level of what...
Didn't they do one, though?
Yeah, was that on the Vita? I want to say they did one on the Vita.
I want to say you were right. It was on the Vita.
But up next.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
one of the other games that weren't available on the digital download that was a big "what are you thinking?" Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep.
Yeah.
It's one of the bigger titles for the system, and this is a game to get. This is a story set in the Kingdom Hearts world. Of course, if you go look up the correct order and the sequence of these games for where they take place in the story, but it definitely this fills out a lot of info from the past with those games, and of course it plays tremendously. Big RPG, love this game. Lunar Silver Star Story. This is a redo port of sorts.
It's actually very kind of difficult to find. I have yet to see that other than your pickup.
I have seen one other copy since I've hunted.
Yeah.
So this was a RPG. Of course, it was originally on the Sega CD, and then it was ported over to the PS1, which I have both of the Lunars on there. This one added in some new stuff like voiceovers and all this kind of stuff. So it's a little bit of a enhanced version, to relive it and everything. So they have it says all new graphics and everything. This music is awesome. The music on here is great, but the whole game, and this is the game that I mentioned that has a it is a third party. Case. It's all cool.
I like the look of that though.
Well, you can buy and replace all yours with that.
No.
Up next, Mega Man Powered Up. This is a cutesy remake of the original Mega Man. And it is cute and fun, and it actually has an easy mode. So for those that are really bad at Mega Man, and Mega Man's got this big old head, he runs around. It is just an awesome little game to pick up. I kind of wish they would have done like the first three, kind of like the Wily Wars over on Sega, instead of just the first one.
Right.
But pretty cool. Also, Mega Man X Maverick Hunter. This is a remake of the original Mega Man X on Super Nintendo, and it has voice acting. It has where it actually fills in the full story of the game instead of just giving you the levels. So, really good with that one. These next ones, really different. They are completely and utterly graphically and gameplay different than anything you ever expect for this series. Metal Gear Acid 1 and 2. So these are tactical card-based games. Yeah.
Well then.
Where you've got to make it through the level, and you can only go in certain spots. It is a 3D level, and you've got a grid where you can go to, and they have enemies, and you got to get to them, and you have certain cards that you have certain abilities, and it is completely and utterly different. It is an offshoot completely of the series. It is not canon at all. And these aren't considered canon either, even though you could definitely make a point for them to be. Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops and Portable Ops Plus. So Portable Ops, both of these games.
I played the crap or VR missions is what I played.
Yeah. So Portable Ops, you can do online mode with this and do all this kind of cool stuff. Plus kind of is basically just kind of adds to, it's like an expansion pack. But the original game has a complete and new story. It takes place after Snake Eater. You play as Big Boss. He's refusing to call himself Big Boss, and then it also introduces the first time he meets somebody called Colonel Campbell, a young Colonel Campbell, as well as the guy that would go on to become Gray Fox.
Yee.
Metal Gear Solid, Peace Walker. So I bought this game brand spanking new on Amazon, just like I did the Mega Man games. I got them at the same time, and it's funny because everything is dual language. It's everything is it's in English and in Spanish on the back. So it's kind of.
I wonder if mine is.
I don't think it is.
I think I have the original.
Yeah, I've looked at yours before, and I don't think it is.
I gotta decrease my stack to get to it.
The suspense is thrilling.
I know, right? Whoa!
Yeah. Dropping stuff.
Yes, it is in different languages.
Oh, cool. Monster Hunter 2, or Monster Hunter Freedom 2. That's the only Monster Hunter that I have on the console. Moving past that, though, very interesting and exclusive to Sony, and it is a rhythm-based game called Patapon. And there were 3 of these, and I only have the first one. But, like, you did rhythm-based with, like, the little triggers, pata, pata, patapon, and you had to move your guys, your little, like, blank, black, like, eyeballs across the screen, and very interesting, very different. Very different.
Yeah.
Shin Megami Tensei, Persona. This is a remake of the original Persona. Really cool to have that on there. And then also, I don't have the original. I don't have the case for it, and I can't find anywhere a printable label for this game.
Really?
Yeah, no. Persona 2, Innocent Sin. So, interesting to note, Persona 2 is 2 games. You have Innocent Sin, and then you have, like, Eternal something. And both of them were released on the PS1, but we only got the Eternal one, right? And we never got Innocent Sin. So this is Innocent Sin. However, when they released Innocent Sin on PSP, they had both of them on the PSP, and we only got it like Innocent Sin. So we never got both of them on the damn, like, on one console. It's kind of frustrating.
What is it? Is it printable label or printable?
Like a label scan, like where people scan, like people would take their entire label out of their PSP case and scan it. I actually have a couple games where I have them scanned, where I've scanned, like, downloaded their scans and printed them on paper and put them in there because it looks good enough for the for the shelf and everything. But,
right, because I definitely, there's a couple I want, like Phantasy Star, the Monster Hunters.
I have a website that's that I will try and link you to see if we can find one that for you for that. But nowhere that I cannot find this game anywhere, and it's frustrating.
I'm looking.
This one.
While you're talking.
PSP or P3P, Persona 3 Portable. So this is a PSP version of Persona 3 that was on PS2. And this one is very significant because this is the first Persona game, this version, where you can control all your characters. Before, you could control your avatar character, and the other ones you could kind of select their AI, how you want them to act.
Right.
Do you want them to heal? Do you want, so you would have to try and, like, sometimes it would kind of suck because they would do stuff you didn't want them to do. That started that trend with Persona 3. Up next, game you got, Phantasy Star Portable.
Yes. I like the look of that.
Phantasy Star Portable, of course, that's from Sega. This next game is one of the only games I have that was a PS2 game first, other than Persona 3. But they released the PS2 version and this version. And I never really cared to own this version until I just kind of got a wild hair up my ass. SmackDown vs. Raw 2006. And I will say that the graphics are downgraded. There's no commentary during the matches, which I don't think there was before, or if there was, I don't really remember if there was that significant. But really cool thing, like, I really dig some of the music in the soundtrack for this game. Or even if I don't like the song, it brings back so many memories.
Right.
Because me and Rob played a mode on here. Like, this came out in November of 2005. It's a very, that whole summer, fall, winter of around 2005, 2006 is very, like, pivotal to me as a person. And those songs take me right back to that. With me and him sitting in my room playing SmackDown versus Raw, playing GM mode, drinking Monsters, eating pizza, eating junk food. Well, because that fall and winter, I'm sorry. We were both working at the same place, and we, like, would work. And of course, wintertime, who's buying and building houses?
Yeah.
So, like, we would get done with our work on Wednesday and have Thursday and Fridays off, which sucks for your pocketbook.
I was gonna say that would suck for the pocketbook.
I'm living with my mom and dad.
Right.
I have the only bills I have, I pay them like $50 a week for my cell phone, and then for my insurance on my car. It's like, I have no bills. I have no responsibility. Let's hang out and play video games. And he
Man, don't you miss those times?
yes,
No responsibility.
yes, I do. I do. Damn it.
I do too.
And so picking this up, I wanted to see. I'm like, I want to see how close this is, and it does everything that the other one did. It plays almost the same, and it also has the whole GM mode where you would draft your roster, and then you would try and compete against the other show about who has the better ratings, and you would put together feuds and everything. And me and Rob would play that against each other. I would do one show, he'd have another show, and we'd try to put on matches, and we'd be silly. And it's just getting this, of course, with that soundtrack too. And now when you play the matches instead of like commentary over the matches, where you have JR and King talking, you got the music from the soundtrack playing. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Up next, Star Ocean, First Departure.
Yay!
This is the remake of the original Star Ocean that was only on Super Nintendo in Japan, so we never got it.
That's why we got it.
And then Star Ocean, Second Evolution. This is the port or / remake of Star Ocean 2.
I'm looking for that one.
On the PS1. And then, of course, you put them together.
And it makes the planet
it's awesome.
that you're on.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's the other one I got to get for this system.
It's awesome. Here's a game. Here's the first game that I got because I mentioned I got Vice City. And then the other game that I bought when I first bought the PSP was MGS Portable Ops. Siphon Filter, Dark Mirror. Dude, you laugh. This game's awesome.
All
right.
I won't. I'm not a big Siphon Filter fan.
Okay, here's the thing. It is an over-the-shoulder. They changed it to an over-the-shoulder shooter where you need 2 analog sticks to play this game. So how do you do that on the PSP?
Triangle, square, X, and
that is your other stick. So you move, and then
I did not like those.
And you aim with that, and then you aim and you shoot, and it freaking works.
It works, but boy, is it clunky.
You know what? It still works. I loved it. It was awesome because I have been I love the original 3 Siphon Filters for the PS1. The one for PS2 was it's trying to be an online game. Is like stop doing this to my heart. And then that game was really cool. The next one, Siphon Filter Logan Shadow, is a sequel. I never played it. I love the first one. I haven't even touched this one. Up next, Tactics Ogre from Square.
So that is that like Ogre Battle? This Super Nintendo.
This is Tactics Ogre. I want to say it is from the Super Nintendo. Yeah,
I think that is the Super Nintendo remake, isn't it?
I think it is.
I love that game. So you said it's Tactics.
Tactics Ogre.
Okay, I'm looking it up, but continue.
A game called Tokobot.
Tokobot.
Kind of a third, like a platformer. It almost kind of reminds me of what Knack would become. But then, why did I buy this? What do I care? At Goodwill, many, many moons ago, I found Tokobot Plus, which is the PS2 port of this, sealed.
So it is. That is the remake. The Tactics Ogre, Let Us Cling Together.
Yep.
This game was released in 1995 on the Super Famicom in Japan as a sequel to. It's actually a sequel to Ogre Battle: The March of the Black Queen.
Sweet.
So it is a sequel.
So with Tokobot, I never opened it on the PS2 because it's sealed. How many sealed PS2 games you find?
Not very many.
Yeah, right. So I found Tokobot, the original, and I just bought it so I could play it and not have to open the new one. Only a few more here. Twisted Metal, Head On. This is the sequel to Twisted Metal Black. This would also get a PS2 release, and that would actually have some cut content from Twisted Metal Black and whatnot, so it's kind of cool to get that. But yeah, Twisted Metal, right in your pocket. Same game you have, Untold Legends. Brotherhood of the Blade. There's another one out there. to get. Now,
you just hear now.
so the day that we got you hooked up with your PSP.
Yes.
Now, at our disc replay, they kind of know us, and
kind of. They come in, hey guys, how you doing? Every time.
So yeah, they kind of know us, and we were getting you hooked up for the PSP. Of course, getting you Crisis Core. You were looking at Peace Walker. You're looking at a couple other games, and here I am. I'm like recommending this game, recommending that game. Like, oh yeah, you need to check this out. And then the guy's like, hey, we just got a bunch of games in. We haven't even put them out yet. Do you want to come see them?
I remember this.
We're like, yeah, sure. So then we were both walking back up to the counter, and he puts this big, like stack of games, and there are these two big boxes on the bottom, and you see them, and you go, and you just take your arm and drag all the games towards you. And I went, no, you will not. I said, I was up here first. And you're like, well, they've got big boxes. And I'm like, you don't even know how to pronounce them.
Yeah, you're right.
And those two games were games in the Ys series. So Ys 1 and 2 Chronicles. And then the other one they had that day was Ys 7.
So if I remember correctly, they were in basically mint condition.
Okay.
Like
E7 box is a little banged up. Not much. Like not much that you guys are going to be able to see on if you're watching this on the live feed. But 1 and 2, whew, it's crisp.
Wasn't the contents inside of those? Some of those still had the plastic bags inside of them.
Okay, so
you have to open. I'm making you open them up.
It's all right. So, Ys 1 and 2 was the game was open. Here's the game.
Right.
And this game is a port / remake, if you will, of the original Ys 1 and 2, which came out originally. Ys 1 came out on the Sega Master System. And then, of course, these games came out on... my mic has been pointed down the whole time. Hopefully, I haven't been too quiet. There they go.
Your levels have been fine.
Okay. Well, the other two games came out on the TurboGrafx 16. And then, of course, they've kind of been here and there all over the place throughout the years. So, yeah, the game was open. But then the soundtrack CD was sealed, and it still is. I've never opened it. So now I got to be careful and put these back in there. As you do, right?
Right.
And so I have been, since I started collecting, so many different people, Happy Console Gamer and whatnot, really turned me on to this series. And I'm like, what is this series? I've never even heard of it. And then that day I see them, I'm like, ah! And you're like, me! And I'm like, bonk. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, I was just being the real asshole because I knew that they were something you were looking for. And I just wanted to be, because we've kind of have a thing going on with a specific Final Fantasy game.
So
that I snatched. It was in my hand first.
It was. And it took me like another year and a half to find another copy. That was on the GBA, Game Boy Advance. So then E7 was the other one they had. And this had this has like a full book with it. Kind of art book and really cool stuff to get, especially if you which I wasn't at the time, but have started to become a kind of a big fan of the series. And then, of course, you had the game. And then I do believe that 7 was the one that was still sealed as the game. Yes. And I
believe one of the games was still sealed. And when we walked out and you sat in the car, you're like, dude, this is still sealed. Like...
So I did open the game because I do believe in opening my games unless I have a good reason not to. And,
right.
But I did leave the other. Is this a freaking map? a map of the world, and then it's this soundtrack. Both of those are still sealed. So these are some really cool things to get on the PSP. Now, especially if you can find the boxes. Now, there's also a collector box because I have for the what what was I saying? Persona 2, right?
Yeah.
That game has one as well. And of course, if you find it just with the game, just know that you're missing the collector box somewhere. And I have actually seen it, and it's a little expensive. These two games online at the time were going together, about $100, and I got them for $30.
Yeah,
but I was missing one because when you put these things together, it's like an old VHS collector things. Do they make a picture?
Yeah,
and I was missing Ys, The Oath in Felghana, and this is Ys 3. By the way, they have since had this in disc replay once. I've seen it.
Yeah, I haven't really got into the Ys.
Okay. I needed this because when you put all those pictures on the side, it makes the full image, dude. You could tell it's like they're all together, like they're all connected. So Ys 3. So I'm looking for it. I find it on Amazon. It's listed as in good condition. It's $30 by itself, maybe about 35, right? And I'm like, should I? Because you don't have any pictures of it. It's a third party seller,
right?
And then I talked to myself. I'm like, I need it to complete the set. As long as it is in good condition, that's all I care about. So I ordered it, and I get it, and I send you a text.
Yep.
Like, I got the game. And you go, and? I'm like, it's not in good condition. You're like, oh, no, what's wrong with it? And I send you a picture.
Still sealed.
Still sealed.
It's brand new. It's not good. It's brand new.
It still is. I haven't opened anything in there.
I remember you were tickled to death because it was such a. I mean, as you guys know, you order stuff like on eBay, and it's always a risk. You're always at a risk. But that was Amazon, and I was really surprised it was in that good condition. I figured it'd be open at least, and
right.
Some nicks on the corners. But
absolutely, I was expecting shelfware, and I was hoping that it at least had everything that was supposed to be in the box, But everything's in there. Everything's sealed. It still is, because that tells you I haven't got to that game yet.
Yeah.
Because I probably will open it. Now, as I said, I got that for like $30-$35, and Disc Replay had that for $60.
So you got a good deal.
In used condition. Everything's open.
Right.
So, yeah, got a great deal. And those are some like pride and joys of my PSP collection. And, of course, there are some other games out there that I would like to track down and get, but I'd have to travel up north, maybe down south to really. Every time I go, I try to look in their section just to see what's what. And
right.
I haven't really cracked open into getting the movies yet because I don't really have a need to. Some of them be cool. I love to have The Crow.
They're really hard to view.
Yeah.
To watch a movie on there. I remember I watched the National Treasure. I said it right this time. And when I got it, because obviously you get it all, you want to check everything out. And it was cool, but it was hard to see, especially a movie you've seen on a full-size television.
If I were on a plane somewhere, like that, that's one thing. But for collector purposes, I've actually thought about picking up a few. But I haven't, because I haven't found any that I really want to spend money on. And then, of course, space. I don't have enough space anymore.
Right.
For anything like that. So, the legacy of the PSP. I mean, the PSP is a damn good system to get, even
Still
today.
One of my favorites because I love the size. The size for me, yeah, I've got the hand grip on here for comfort because, as you know, when you start playing this, it does kind of hurt. But the size of this thing, as I have to reach over my mic here, I mean, you're talking, it's small. But in aspects of like PlayStation 1 games, it's perfect because one of the big things about like for us is RPGs on the go is a big deal because you drive in a car and somebody else is driving, you can play it. You've got plane rides was for me. I remember playing on a plane. Just that ability surpasses any of the other ones. And the biggest thing is this is one of the ones where you could get console graphics of the PS1 on the go. So you could have Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, Legend of Dragoon. I mean, we're talking the entire PlayStation 1 library was available on this handheld device. That's a big deal.
At least ones that were, any of consequence at least.
But one of the problems is that Final Fantasy 7, you had to have its own duo cartridge for it because it's over a gig.
Well, and then 9 is too.
And 9 is also, and so is Legend of Dragoon.
So, the system itself was discontinued January of 14. So, 10 years on the market.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good. There's 80 million of them out there, so there is no shortage of PSPs. Of course, you always want to take a good gander at the system that you're buying used. Make sure that the screen looks good. Make sure that there's no missing pixels or something wrong with the screen.
Now with the PSP 2000 and 3000, they have a different screen than the first one.
Yeah,
and they are LED, I believe.
I don't know if they're LED, but I do know that the 3000 actually has some weird imaging. It has like a ghost image.
It ghosts, yeah. It ghosts like it looks like a TV box.
Yeah.
So like here's your screen, but then you have like a little ghosting. Now mine actually has the ghosting, but the first one is a liquid crystal display, and it does not have that, but it has a tendency to completely wipe the whole screen out.
It
will literally just die.
There was actually a one last model that was released, and it's called the E1000, and there's no Wi-Fi capability for it. Which kind of sucks if you're trying to download some stuff, and so that means you can't get on the store. But I mean, it was like a really sleek. They're trying to just like, hey, here's another model out there. Interesting because then it's like, well, and the thing is that when you would buy a new game, they would have more like the most recent version of the system. It's like the
right.
With system updates and all that kind of stuff. The operating software, they have the most recent system. So if you buy a game, like for example, if you one of the last games you bought was say E7 or whatever, and it was one of the last games that came out, which it isn't, but and it's like it has system version 6.0, and you're only on 3. Well, you need to have 6.0 to play this game. And then it's going to automatically update your system. So that was one thing about like the hacking. That's that's one way they got around it by like, well, I never have my system online, And then if you bought a physical copy of a game, it'd be like, no, you're going to update this if you want to play it.
Right.
And that's one way that they got around it. PSP, man, the legacy, of course, it led to another successor to the Vita, which is awesome, another handheld in its own. But the PSP just left a mark, dude. It was one of the only consoles really trying to rival Nintendo. Of course, Nintendo knocked it out of the park with their DS, and it sold way more than this. I want to say it's like up there in 100 millions, 120 millions. But for sure, this is not a system to be forgotten. There are loads. Like I said, sports, RPGs, racers. There's so many racers. Then you have fighters. You have arcade games. You have platformers. Everything you can imagine is on this damn system. And they're just out there for you to go find, for you to go collect. And when I started collecting, I got really hog wild into the PS1. The next system I got hog wild into was PSP.
Okay, so DS collect all of them. together 154 million units sold worldwide.
Dang.
And the U.S. alone was roughly 60 million, so 59.93.
Well,
And then the highest actually is other
other.
at 61, but Japan was 32.9.
That was for the DS, you said?
And that is as of 2016 March 31st.
Well, Nintendo is still dominating the handheld market with the Switch.
Yes.
Because it's both now. And,
Yeah.
I've always kind of craved Sony to be able to have an affordable, portable experience, which we are probably not ever going to get. But probably,
No.
I mean, the next generation of that is definitely this right here. So
That's what a lot of people are moving to.
it's all on our cell phones, man. But Mike, thank you so much for joining me here today to gush about the system and to do a redo, an actual dive into our collections and make love to this sweet PSP that we have on our shelves. And I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in to this episode of the Game Addicts Podcast. Please connect with us on all of our social media at Game Addicts Play on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And, of course, download this podcast. We air this show. We are live on Twitch each and every single Wednesday. And, of course, we are on podcast services each and every Thursday. So the audio version goes out on Thursday. And then if you missed the live stream of our video on Wednesday, it's out on Friday over on our YouTube channel. Give that a shout out as well. Mike, until next time, I'll see you later, dude.
I'll see you later.
Yep. And see you guys later on the other side. Game on.